You ever get to a certain age and realize you've been doing life all wrong? I did. Took me 7 decades, but I finally figured it out. And let me tell you something. Not in a million years did I think the key to my happiness would be as simple as this: avoiding neighbors. Sounds extreme, doesn't it? I know. But if you'll stick with me for a bit, I'll tell you exactly how cutting off the constant noise of people I barely cared for transformed my peace, my mind, and my life. Now, before you think I'm some bitter old man shaking his fist at the world, let me be clear, I wasn't always like this. I used to believe in the whole community thing. Thought it was important to be friendly, social, always keep a smile for the folks next door. It's what we were all taught, wasn't it? Be neighborly. Look out for one another. It takes a village. And so, for most of my life, I played along. Chit-chatted over fences, waved at every passing car, got roped into barbecues I didn't want to attend, gave favors I didn't want to give, and, worst of all, let people into my space who had no business being there. I didn't realize it at the time, but every little interaction chipped away at something deep inside me. My peace, my time, my energy, it was all leaking out, bit by bit, given away freely to people who, if I'm being honest, weren't really my friends. Just familiar faces, neighbors by geography, not by heart. Then one day, it hit me. It was the middle of a Saturday afternoon, and I was standing in my kitchen, feeling drained. Not because of anything serious, just the usual nonsense. Earlier, that day, my neighbor had caught me in the driveway for just a quick chat. 30 minutes later, I was still stuck listening to them drone on about their garden, their grandkids, their aches and pains. Stuff I didn't care about, but I nodded along anyway, because that's what you do, right? When I finally got inside, I felt exhausted. Not just tired, but genuinely worn down, like I had spent the last ounce of my patience on something that didn't matter. And that's when it clicked. Why was I doing this? Why was I letting people I didn't even like take up so much of my life? Did I really owe them that? No, I didn't. And in that moment, I decided I was done. Done with small talk. Done with forced smiles. Done with pretending to care just because someone lived next door. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't become some recluse overnight. I didn't slam doors in people's faces or start acting rude. I just stopped engaging. When a neighbor waved, I gave a polite nod and kept walking. When someone tried to start a conversation, I found a reason to leave. Over time, people got the hint. The invitation stopped. The endless, meaningless conversations dried up. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. You don't realize how much of your energy goes into maintaining relationships you don't even want until you stop. It's like dropping a heavy backpack you didn't even know you were carrying. The weight of obligation, of forced interactions, of always being on for the sake of appearances, gone. And let me tell you, it was the best thing I ever did. For myself. Something incredible happened once I let go of the idea that I had to be involved with my neighbors. My home, my little slice of the world, became a true sanctuary. No more unexpected drop-ins. No more getting trapped in conversations I didn't want to have. I could wake up, sit on my porch, drink my coffee, and enjoy the silence without fearing the sound of footsteps coming up my driveway. And the best part? My mind changed. Without the constant noise of other people's problems, opinions, and nonsense, I could finally hear myself think. My thoughts were my own again. I found new hobbies. I started reading more. Hell, I even started enjoying my own company in a way I never had before. Of course, some people didn't like it. They thought I was being antisocial, maybe even a little cold. But here's what I realized. The only people who get upset when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. And I wasn't going to feel guilty for taking back my own life. This whole experience taught me something important, something I wish I had learned decades ago. Not every relationship is worth keeping. Not every interaction adds value to your life. And sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is simply step away. Now, does this mean I live in total isolation? No. I still have close friends, family members I cherish, and people I genuinely enjoy talking to. But the difference is, those relationships are real. They're built on something deeper than just the fact that we happen to live near each other. They're meaningful, and that's what matters. Looking back, I wish I had given myself permission to do this sooner. All those years wasted on pointless pleasantries, wasted energy on people I don't even think about anymore. It's almost laughable. But I'm here now. And let me tell you, life is quieter, simpler, and so much more peaceful. And if you're watching this, feeling drained by the constant pull of social obligations, I have one piece of advice. Let go. You don't owe anyone your time just because they live next door. Your peace is worth more than that. Trust me. Now, I know what some people might be thinking. Isn't cutting off your neighbors a bit extreme? Doesn't it get lonely? I used to ask myself those same questions. It's natural. We've been conditioned to believe that being social is always better, that we need a network of people around us at all times. But let me tell you, there's a big difference between real companionship and just surrounding yourself with people for the sake of it. Loneliness isn't about how many people are around you. It's about whether or not you feel connected. And if I'm being honest, I never felt truly connected to my neighbors, not in any meaningful way. Sure, we exchanged pleasantries, maybe borrowed a tool here and there, but did any of that actually add value to my life? No. It was surface level, nothing more than habit, an illusion of community. Real relationships, the ones that truly matter, they take more than just proximity. They take effort, understanding, shared values. And let's be honest, most of us don't have that with our neighbors. We just tolerate them out of some old-fashioned sense of duty. But duty to what? To meaningless conversations? To forced interactions? To an outdated idea of what community is supposed to be? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that my so-called neighborhood relationships were doing nothing but draining me. Every time I stepped outside, I felt like I had to be on, like I had to perform, play the role of the friendly old man who always had a smile and a minute to spare. But the truth was, I didn't always have a minute to spare. I didn't always feel like chatting about the weather or listening to someone's complaints about their leaky faucet. And yet, for years, I kept up the act. Because that's what you do, right? You don't want to be the odd one out. You don't want to be known as the grumpy neighbor. But here's what I realized. Why should I care? Why should I prioritize the opinions of people who don't really know me? People who wouldn't be there if I truly needed them? Let me tell you something. When I stopped entertaining these shallow connections, something interesting happened. My real relationships, the ones that actually mattered, grew stronger. With neighbors out of the picture, I had more energy for the people I actually wanted to spend time with. My close friends, my family, the ones who truly brought joy into my life. I started having deeper, more meaningful conversations. When I met up with my real friends, I wasn't drained from 100 little interactions throughout the week. I wasn't coming in with my social battery already depleted from all the meaningless small talk. Instead, I was present, engaged, fully there. And it made all the difference. Another thing that changed? My time became my own again. You don't realize how much of your day is stolen by unimportant interactions until you cut them out. All those moments spent chatting about nothing, all that energy spent pretending to be interested, it adds up. And when I finally let go of that, I had time for things that actually mattered. I started reading more, not just flipping through pages, but really reading, absorbing books, thinking about them, enjoying them in a way I hadn't in years. I picked up old hobbies I had forgotten about. Woodworking, gardening, even just sitting outside and listening to the wind in the trees. Simple things, but things that brought me real joy. And you know what else? My stress levels dropped. People don't realize how much anxiety comes from constantly feeling like you have to be available, Like you always have to be ready for an interaction, a conversation, an obligation. But when you take that away, when you allow yourself to just be, something incredible happens. You relax, your mind clears. The tension in your body fades. It's funny, society tells us that being social is the key to happiness, but no one ever talks about the exhaustion that comes with it. No one ever tells you that it's okay to step back, to protect your energy, to choose peace over obligation. And let me tell you, once you do, there's no going back. Now, I'm not saying everyone should shut their doors and ignore their neighbors forever. Some people genuinely enjoy that kind of socializing, and that's fine. But if you're like me, if you've spent years feeling drained by the constant pull of forced interactions, then maybe it's time to consider a different way. Maybe it's time to give yourself permission to step away, because at the end of the day, your happiness is your own responsibility. No one else is going to protect your peace for you. No one else is going to set boundaries for you. You have to do it yourself. And let me tell you, it's worth it. I look around now at this quiet life I've built for myself, and I feel nothing but gratitude. No more meaningless conversations, no more social exhaustion, just peace, freedom, and the people who truly matter. And if I had known it would feel this good, I would have done it years ago. One thing I've noticed since making this change is how much my perception of people has shifted. When you step back from the noise, from all the unnecessary conversations and obligations, you start to see people for who they really are. And let me tell you, most people are not as kind, thoughtful, or considerate as they pretend to be. I don't say that to be bitter. I say it because it's the truth. For years, I thought of my neighbors as friendly, good people. Why? Because they smiled, waved, asked how I was doing. But here's the thing. Kindness isn't about words. It's about actions. And when I really started paying attention, I realized that these people weren't actually my friends. They were just familiar. The same neighbors who always wanted to chat about the weather, never once checked on me when I was sick. The ones who asked for favors, never offered anything in return. The ones who seemed so friendly, would gossip about each other the moment someone turned their back. It was all so shallow, so transactional. I started asking myself, why had I invested so much time in these people? Why had I let them drain my energy when deep down, they didn't actually care about me? Because let's be honest, most neighbors are only friendly for convenience. They want to keep things smooth, keep up appearances, make sure everyone stays on good terms just in case they need something one day. It's not real connection. It's just social politeness, a habit, a way to make life easier. And you know what? That's fine. But I decided I didn't need to be part of it anymore. Once I stopped engaging, I started to see the difference between people who genuinely valued me and those who just wanted to fill the air with noise. And let me tell you, when you clear out the meaningless relationships, the real ones shine even brighter. It's funny, because when I was younger, I used to think having a lot of acquaintances meant you were doing something right. That being well-liked, being known, meant you had lived a good life. But now, at 70, I see things differently. I don't want to be known by many. I want to be deeply known by a few. I want the people in my life to be the ones who matter, the ones who bring something real to the table, the ones who don't drain me, but fill me with something good. And that's exactly what happened when I let go of my neighbors. With them out of the picture, I had time for the relationships that actually made me happy. My close friends, the ones who truly know me, my family, the people who have been there through thick and thin. These are the people who deserve my time, my energy, my presence. And let me tell you, when you pour into the right relationships, they give back in ways you never imagined. The conversations I have now are deeper. The time I spend with people is richer. There's no pretending, no performing, no obligation, just real connection, real understanding. I think a lot of people go through life with the wrong idea about relationships. They think more is better, more friends, more acquaintances, more social circles. But the older I get, the more I realize it's not about quantity. It's about quality, and quality relationships take time, effort, and energy. Energy that I used to waste on neighbors who didn't truly matter. Now, I won't lie to you. Making this shift wasn't always easy. At first, I worried. Worried about being seen as rude. Worried about what people would think. Worried about becoming too isolated. But then I asked myself, why do I care? Why should I shape my life around other people's opinions? Why should I exhaust myself for the sake of appearances? That's when I knew I had made the right decision. And you know what's interesting? Once I stopped engaging, people moved on. At first, there were some confused looks, a few awkward moments. A neighbor would try to chat, and I'd keep my response short. A conversation would start, and I'd politely excuse myself. But over time, people got the message. They found someone else to talk to. It was proof of everything I had already realized. These relationships weren't built on anything real. If they were, people wouldn't have let go so easily. And honestly, that was the most freeing part. Because once you see how quickly people forget about you when you stop giving them your time, you realize just how little they actually valued you in the first place. And that's okay. Not every relationship is meant to last. Not every interaction is worth holding on to. What matters is that you protect your peace, that you choose the life that makes you happiest. And for me, that life is quiet. It's simple. It's full of real relationships, not surface-level connections. Wake up each morning knowing I won't be pulled into unnecessary conversations. I go about my day knowing my energy is mine to spend how I want. I sit on my porch in the evening, sipping my tea, listening to the world around me, feeling completely at ease, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. So if you're out there, feeling exhausted by the weight of social obligation, wondering if it's okay to step back, let me tell you, it is. It's okay to choose yourself. It's okay to protect your energy. It's okay to walk away from relationships that don't add value to your life. Because at the end of the day, your happiness isn't anyone else's responsibility. It's yours. And if you ask me, there's nothing lonelier than surrounding yourself with people who don't truly care. So choose wisely. Looking back, I realized that the biggest lesson in all of this wasn't just about avoiding neighbors. It was about reclaiming my time, my peace, and my sense of self. For most of my life, I did what was expected. I played the role of the good neighbor. I waved, I chatted, I made myself available, even when I didn't want to be. I let people take up space in my life simply because they were there, not because they added anything meaningful. And for what? To be liked? To be polite? To avoid awkwardness? Let me tell you something I wish I had learned a long time ago. None of that is worth your happiness. We spend so much of our lives trying to be agreeable, trying to keep the peace, trying to make sure we don't step on any toes. But in doing that, we often forget about the most important person, ourselves. It took me 70 years to realize that my time, my energy, and my attention are not things I have to give away freely. They are valuable, they are limited, and they should be spent wisely. When I finally stepped away from the constant noise of social obligations, I discovered something incredible. I had time to think, not just surface-level thoughts, but real, deep thinking. The kind of thinking that helps you understand who you are and what you truly want. You see, when your life is constantly filled with chatter, with small talk, with the opinions and problems of others, your own voice gets drowned out. You forget to listen to yourself. You forget to ask yourself the important questions. Am I happy? Am I living the way I truly want to? And when I finally had the space to ask myself those questions, I realized that for years, the answer had been no. I had been living a life of habit, not choice. But now every day is intentional. I wake up and decide what I want to do, not what I feel obligated to do. I spend time with the people who truly matter, not the ones who just happen to be around. I no longer force myself into conversations I don't want to have, and you know what? I don't miss them, not one bit. Because here's the truth. Most of what we think we'll miss, we never actually do. I used to think I'd miss the feeling of being part of a community. I used to worry that without those casual interactions, my world would feel smaller. But the opposite happened. My world got bigger. Because when you remove the unnecessary, you make room for what really matters. I replaced shallow interactions with deep conversations. I replaced forced small talk with moments of real reflection. I replaced the pressure to be social with the freedom to just be. And that freedom? It's priceless. People often ask me if I regret making this change. If I ever feel lonely, let me tell you something. Loneliness isn't about how many people are around you. It's about whether or not you feel truly seen and understood. And I feel more seen, more understood, and more at peace now than I ever did when I was surrounded by neighbors who only cared about surface-level pleasantries. I've learned that life is too short to waste on relationships that don't nourish you. That it's okay to choose solitude over social exhaustion. That it's okay to protect your energy, to set boundaries, to walk away from what doesn't serve you. And most importantly, I've learned that happiness doesn't come from being well-liked. It comes from being at peace with yourself. So if you're sitting there, feeling drained by the constant pull of social obligation, let this be your sign. You don't have to keep playing the game. You don't have to keep giving away your time and energy just because it's expected of you. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to create a life that feels good to you, even if it doesn't make sense to others. Because at the end of the day, the only person who has to live with your choices is you. And if you ask me, there's no greater peace than knowing you've chosen yourself. So take back your time, take back your energy, take back your life, and don't waste another second worrying about people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared from their world tomorrow. Because the people who truly matter, they're the ones who will be there, whether you live next door or 1,000 miles away. And those are the only relationships worth holding on to.